They said Ethan Cole could turn silence into fear. The kind of CEO who didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His power was colder than his boardroom glass walls, shaped by a father who taught him that emotions were liabilities and trust was for the weak. Success was his language, solitude his reward. People admired him from afar, but no one truly knew the man behind the title until the day she walked in. Alice Bennett wasn't supposed to stand out, just another applicant in a sea of resumes, nervous, steady, ordinary at first glance. Yet something about her eyes made time hesitate. She wasn't intimidated by his arrogance. She understood it, because she'd lived through her own storms too, quiet ones. Years of sacrifice, caring for her mother, working double shifts, dreaming small but feeling deeply. She wasn't fragile. She was resilient, wrapped in grace. When their worlds collided, it wasn't thunder. It was silence. The kind that changes everything before you realize it. He saw discipline. She saw exhaustion behind control. He saw obedience. She saw loneliness behind pride. From that moment, neither of them could explain why they noticed each other differently. But destiny doesn't ask permission. It writes its stories in invisible ink, waiting for the rain to reveal the truth. And when that truth came, when he tore her letter apart without reading, it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a story that would unmake the man everyone feared and rebuild him into someone even he wouldn't recognize. A story about pride, forgiveness, and the kind of love that doesn't demand attention, it earns it. But how do you rebuild something you destroyed with your own hands? That's what destiny was about to teach him. His interviews in Seattle felt like court. Cold glass, short answers, verdicts fast. Ethan Caldwell, the arrogant CEO, skimmed resumes like weather reports. Glance, dismiss, next. Then Alice entered. Quiet assistant energy, but steady eyes that didn't flinch. Not pretty because of makeup, pretty because of composure. She noticed the torn paper in his bin, the coffee ring on his desk, the clock 2 minutes fast, and said nothing. Curiosity, not charm, cracked his armor. Rain ticked on the window. I'm meant to intimidate. It's how I keep control. Minimal eye contact, clipped questions, a calibrated pause. But she answered like a metronome, clear, concise, unshaken. When I pushed, why this company? She didn't flatter me. Because pressure reveals who we are. Pride twitched. Emotional tension shifted the room. The quiet assistant asked one question back. Do you want truth or comfort? For a beat, I forgot the script, and the arrogant CEO surfaced as a man. The silence felt like fate close. She studied his rhythms in the days that followed. Coffee moments at 7:12, black, no sugar, meetings stacked like brick, sentences tight as ties. Alice adjusted without shrinking, translating chaos into calm. She spoke when needed, and her silence said more. Unspoken love wasn't the point, but sincerity was. In Seattle's gray light, slow romance didn't bloom. Respect did. Ethan noticed mistakes vanish, fires calm, pride loosen. It rattled him, the steadiness he hadn't earned yet. Destiny neared. Then came the slip. She delivered the wrong file to a board prep. His anger detonated, sharp and public. Alice didn't fold. She owned it, corrected it in minutes, and returned with steady eyes. Won't happen again, she said, voice even. The room, oddly, relaxed. Ethan felt control return yet wobble, like a bridge in wind. Who was this quiet assistant who didn't fear him? And why did his pulse argue with his pride as he reached for the next resume? He told himself she was replaceable. So why? No one in the company understood why Ethan hired her. He was known for chewing through assistants like clockwork, 3 and 6 months. But Alice stayed. Her first morning, she arrived before dawn, hair tied, notebook in hand. She didn't hover, didn't ask too much. She just noticed. The way he liked his reports double-stapled, his coffee 2 minutes before meetings, his silence uninterrupted. Slowly, his arrogance met its match in quiet precision. People whispered in the hallways, "She won't last a week." Others bet she'd cry before Friday, but Ethan kept her close, though he never said why. When she walked into his office, Something about her steadiness grounded him. It wasn't attraction, not yet. It was something rarer, calm. Pride hated it. Destiny, though, seemed amused. The arrogant CEO began depending on the assistant who never raised her voice, but somehow filled the room with it. Seattle's skyline reflected in his glass office, and every morning became routine. She'd leave a single post-it with the day's top priority. No emojis, no softness, just clarity. He read them like gospel, though he'd never admit it. Emotional tension hovered like fog over the bay. Once he caught her smiling faintly at the sunrise outside his window. He didn't ask why, but for a brief second, the noise inside his head went silent. Pride lost that round. By the third week, she was managing crises before they erupted. Board errors, scheduling chaos, gone. Ethan observed from a distance, pretending not to. She never tried to impress him, she just worked. And that unnerved him more than flattery ever could. Every controlled gesture chipped at his defenses. He caught himself watching her reflection in the glass more than her reports. But he'd rather die than admit it. Not yet. Something unspoken was beginning to form, and he felt it. Every morning, the smell of coffee filled the office before anyone spoke. Black, no sugar, his ritual, his armor. Alice never asked how he liked it. She just observed. By the third day, she had memorized his pattern. The cup was always waiting, perfectly timed. Ethan noticed, though he pretended not to. Their exchanges were brief. Good morning. Meeting at 9. Yet something unspoken lingered in the air. Quiet, but alive. Like fate listening. It wasn't romance. Not yet. It was rhythm. The way she placed files on his desk without words. The way she stayed calm when he lost his temper. The way silence between them felt less like distance and more like peace. In a world that thrived on noise, she became his quiet rebellion. He'd never tell her, of course, pride doesn't confess gratitude. But that stillness, it started to feel like home, and that terrified him more than loneliness ever did. Seattle's rain painted soft shadows on the office glass as they worked. Sometimes when thunder rolled, he'd glance at her reflection, calm, focused, immune to chaos. Once, their fingers brushed over a document. Neither spoke. The moment passed, but it stayed. There was vulnerability in the silence, and for the first time in years, Ethan didn't want to fill it. Destiny had a strange way of sneaking in, softly, through coffee cups and quiet mornings. The board saw productivity rise, but no one understood the shift. Ethan wasn't easier to please, just less sharp around her. He caught himself pausing before speaking, almost measuring his tone. She didn't soften him, she steadied him. And that was worse, because it made him care. Late at night, he'd stare at the window's reflection and wonder, since when did silence carry her voice? He didn't have the answer yet, but destiny did. It happened on a Monday morning, the kind where even the Seattle sky looked impatient. A wrong file landed on the board table, one slide off, one number missing. Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't yell, not yet, but the tension was louder than words. Unacceptable, he said. Cold, clipped, final. The room froze. Alice stood still, calm eyes on him. No excuses. For a man used to control, her composure felt like defiance wrapped in grace. Do you understand what this costs me? His tone sliced the air. She nodded, unshaken. I do, and I'll fix it. No apology, no tears, just certainty. Ethan hated how that steadiness disarmed him. She wasn't afraid, and that frightened him more than failure itself. Pride demanded dominance, but something inside him, something human, faltered. That quiet assistant with soft words and strong will was teaching him how small power felt when met with dignity. The correction came fast. Within an hour, the board had the fixed report. Alice walked back into his office, her calm intact. Done, she said simply, setting the file on his desk. For a moment, Ethan couldn't speak. Her efficiency was expected. Her confidence wasn't. Won't happen again, she added and left. The door clicked softly, but the sound lingered like a heartbeat. He stared at it, wondering when respect started feeling like defeat. That night, as rain whispered against the glass, he replayed the scene in his head. The anger that once fueled him now felt hollow. Control wasn't power anymore. It was loneliness dressed in authority. He realized something uncomfortable. She hadn't defied him, she'd respected herself. And for the first time, Ethan envied that kind of strength. He didn't know it yet, but that small mistake was about to rewrite everything he thought he understood about destiny. The office was unusually quiet that morning. Ethan walked in expecting the usual rhythm: coffee, schedule, calm efficiency. Instead, a single envelope waited on his desk, her handwriting neat and steady. Mr. Caldwell. No perfume, no flourish, just sincerity. He didn't open it. Something about the stillness around it unsettled him. Pride whispered she was just another assistant leaving, but a quieter voice, one he ignored, told him it wasn't that simple. He turned the envelope in his hands, the paper soft from her touch. He could almost hear her voice in the ink. For a moment he hesitated. Reading it meant acknowledging something he wasn't ready for: regret. So he did what arrogance often does when afraid. He tore it apart. The sound echoed through the room like glass cracking. Torn paper fell onto his desk, scattered like the pieces of something he'd refused to feel. When his next assistant entered, she noticed the fragments but said nothing. Ethan stared at the mess, pretending it was just routine. But every time he looked at his desk, his eyes found her handwriting on the torn edges. Fragments of words he could never fully read. Thank you. Peace. Someday. The irony wasn't lost on him. For a man who demanded perfection, he had just destroyed the only thing that had been honest in his world. That evening, Seattle's skyline blurred through the rain. He stayed late, working without purpose, haunted by a silence he couldn't shake. The resignation letter he hadn't read became louder than any argument. Pride told him to move on. Destiny, however, had already begun to write in the spaces he'd torn apart. He didn't know it yet, but that quiet letter would return, whole, uninvited, and carrying the heart he'd tried to ignore. The next morning felt wrong before he even opened his eyes. The coffee machine was silent, the air too still. In the office, her chair was empty, neat, untouched. No post-it waiting with reminders, no soft knock before meetings. Ethan stood by the window, staring at the skyline. Seattle looked the same, but everything inside him had shifted. The absence wasn't loud, yet it filled every corner of that glass empire he called control. He told himself it didn't matter. Assistants come and go. He repeated it like a mantra, but his routine betrayed him. He reached for his coffee and realized it wasn't there. Checked his calendar, only to see the day unmarked. The silence mocked him with its precision. Without Alice, the rhythm that once defined him had fractured. Pride tried to patch the cracks, but regret seeped through, slow and steady, like rain through marble. By midday, he barked orders louder than usual, demanded perfection from everyone, trying to drown out what he couldn't admit. He missed her calm. The staff noticed. Meetings ran late, tempers ran shorter. Even the board members whispered, wondering what had changed. Ethan didn't notice how often his gaze drifted to her empty desk. He'd built his empire on efficiency, yet the quietest person he'd ever known had become irreplaceable. That night, he lingered in his office long after everyone left. The city lights shimmered against the glass, a mirror to his own restlessness. For the first time, he saw how isolation had become his comfort, and how she'd unknowingly broken that spell. He closed his laptop, but not his thoughts. Somewhere in the fragments of that torn letter, a truth waited. He just wasn't brave enough to face it yet, not tonight. Rumors spread faster than truth in an office built on glass. A few days after Alice left, whispers began. She found another job, someone said near the elevators. Somewhere small, peaceful. Ethan overheard as he passed, pretending not to care. But the words dug in deeper than he expected. He imagined her smiling somewhere quieter, free from his impossible standards. The thought stung in a place he didn't know pride could reach. By lunch, her name had become a ghost in the building. Files she'd organized went missing. Coffee orders came wrong. Meetings slipped. She kept this place running, one executive muttered. Ethan didn't respond, but his silence was an answer. Every broken detail reminded him of her precision. He wondered if she'd already replaced him, not as a boss, but as a presence. Regret whispered, and destiny, somewhere unseen, began to weave new threads. That night, alone in the elevator, he caught his reflection in the mirrored walls. The man staring back looked powerful, but hollow. He thought of the letter, the one he tore apart, and for the first time, he wished he hadn't. What if she'd written something more than goodbye? Something meant to change everything. The question haunted him, a riddle only destiny seemed to understand. He left the office, carrying that silence home. 2 weeks later, a rumor reached him again. This one different. Someone mentioned a cafe by the pier, known for its calm, its warmth, its quiet owner, who once worked for someone important. He brushed it off, but curiosity lingered. Maybe it was coincidence, or maybe fate wasn't done with him yet. Ethan told himself he wouldn't go, but destiny, patient and deliberate, was already waiting, 2 streets away, behind a cup of coffee. It happened on a gray Seattle afternoon, the kind that blurs strangers beneath umbrellas. Ethan stopped at a cafe near the pier, chasing caffeine and distraction. The place smelled like cinnamon and rain. As he glanced up, a familiar voice said, "Table for one?" Alice. The world shrank to that single moment. No corporate armor, no glass walls, just her in an apron, her eyes calm as ever. Destiny didn't knock. It smiled. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. He tried to find words, but arrogance didn't know how to greet grace. "You work here?" he asked, his tone softer than he intended. "I do," she replied, with a small, polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. No bitterness, no tension, just distance. The quiet assistant had built a new rhythm, one that no longer revolved around his world. Pride felt irrelevant. Regret felt loud. He watched her move between tables, effortless and kind, offering warmth to strangers the way she once steadied him. Something in his chest tightened, not jealousy, not nostalgia, but realization. She had found peace, the very thing he tore apart. For a man obsessed with control, this was chaos, the kind that felt like truth. He stayed longer than his coffee lasted, just to watch her live without him. That hurt more than losing her. When he finally left, she called after him, "Good to see you again, Mr. Caldwell." Formal, distant, final. But as he turned, he saw it. A faint tremor in her hand, a hint that the past wasn't entirely gone. He walked into the drizzle, haunted by the smallest detail. She still remembered how he took his coffee. Maybe destiny wasn't done. Maybe it was only waiting for him to finally listen. The rain followed him home, soaking through his coat and into his thoughts. Ethan had faced boardrooms, losses, lawsuits, but not this. The quiet pain of seeing her happy without him unsettled something deeper than pride. He poured himself a drink, but it didn't burn enough to erase her voice. Every time he blinked, he saw her calm smile and the way she said his name, formal, detached. Mr. Caldwell. He hated how empty it sounded now. Days passed, but she lingered like an echo. He caught himself walking by that same cafe more than once, pretending it was coincidence. Once he saw her through the window, helping an elderly man with his coat, laughing softly. That laugh. It used to fill his office with light he never noticed until it was gone. Regret wasn't loud. It was slow, quiet, devastating. The CEO who demanded perfection had finally met a mistake he couldn't fix. He thought of her letter, the one he tore apart, and the way destiny seemed to taunt him now. What if it hadn't been a resignation at all? What if those words he'd destroyed were never meant to leave? The thought looped in his mind, like unfinished business clawing for air. He wanted to ask, to know, to apologize, but his pride still held the pen, and pride, he was learning, was a terrible author. One night, standing by his window, he whispered into the glass, "What did you write, Alice?" The city didn't answer, but somewhere, deep in that silence, he felt the question wouldn't stay unanswered for long. He didn't know destiny was already rewriting the scene, piece by piece, paper by paper. What he'd torn apart was finding its way back, and soon, the truth he'd buried would knock on his door. whole again. It was late, the office dim, the city lights bleeding into reflections of regret. Ethan had stayed after hours again, claiming work but chasing ghosts. His new assistant was efficient, polite, forgettable, everything Alice wasn't. As she tidied the desk, something slipped from the trash bin, a crumpled envelope yellowed at the edges, taped clumsily together. Her curiosity sparked. "Sir, this was in the archives. Should I throw it away?" He froze. That handwriting, he knew it instantly. He took the envelope, his pulse uneven. The paper bore faint folds and coffee stains, proof of time's cruelty. "No," he said quietly. "Leave it." When she left, he sat alone, staring at the fragile thing on his desk, the ghost of his arrogance made tangible. It couldn't be, yet there it was, mended with care like someone had tried to piece the fragments together. Destiny had found what he'd thrown away, and it refused to stay buried. He hesitated for hours. Pride fought curiosity, and for once, curiosity won. Slowly, he opened the envelope. Inside, pieces of his past whispered back, some words still missing, others reattached by tape. He read carefully, his breath shallow. "I'm grateful. Learned peace. You'll find it too." That last line hit like thunder. She hadn't quit in anger. She'd left in forgiveness. The letter he tore in pride was written in love he didn't deserve. His hand trembled as he touched the mended paper. He imagined her gathering the pieces, maybe intending to send it again, or maybe never at all. Had she known he'd see it someday? The idea felt impossible, yet it fit perfectly into the cruel symmetry of fate. Outside, rain began to fall, steady and relentless. It sounded like destiny knocking gently, saying, "You're not done yet." Ethan closed his eyes and listened. That night he couldn't sleep. He replayed every moment, her calm voice, the mistake she fixed, the silence she left behind. Regret had finally taken form, sitting on his desk like a confession too late. But there was also something new, hope. A second chance wrapped in old paper and quiet forgiveness. He didn't know how it found him or why now, but he knew this. Destiny doesn't return what you lost unless it plans to test what you've learned. Ethan sat motionless. The letter spread before him like an autopsy of his own pride. The tape lines looked like scars, holding fragments that once carried meaning. Between them, he could almost see her handwriting curve with care. "Peace. Someday." The words glowed faintly under the desk lamp, tender yet final. He imagined her writing them in silence, maybe late at night, her resolve soft but unshakable. He'd torn her voice apart, and now it spoke louder than ever. For the first time in years, he felt small, not as a man but as a soul. The billionaire CEO, the name carved on skyscrapers, now dwarfed by a torn page and a quiet girl's grace. He realized success had never filled the space that her silence had left. Regret sat beside him like an old friend, uninvited but patient. He wondered how forgiveness could be so gentle and yet so devastating. Destiny had written her words in his conscience. He leaned back, staring at the city through rain-streaked glass. Everything outside looked blurred, distorted, as if Seattle itself mirrored his confusion. "You'll find peace someday." Her words echoed in him, not as comfort, but as a challenge. Had she found hers? Probably. And that truth hurt the most. She had moved on while he stayed trapped in the office of his own making, luxurious but loveless. The empire felt like a mausoleum of ambition. He picked up the torn paper again, tracing a line with his thumb where a sentence was missing. What did that missing piece say? It haunted him, that blank space, a silence that demanded redemption. For years, he had believed control was strength. Now he understood. Humility was. Pride had cost him her trust, maybe even her love. But destiny rarely wastes pain. It recycles it into second chances, if you're brave enough to ask for them. He folded the letter carefully, this time with respect. The arrogance that once tore it now handled it like glass. "I'm sorry," he whispered, to no one and everyone at once. The words felt foreign, fragile, but right. Somewhere inside that apology, The first thread of redemption began to weave itself. Ethan didn't know how to make things right yet, but he knew this was no accident. Destiny had brought her words back for a reason. Ethan didn't plan it. One moment he was staring at her letter again. The next he was in his car driving through Seattle's drizzle toward the pier. The cafe looked just as he remembered. Soft lights, warm tones, her world untouched by his chaos. Through the window, he saw her laughing with a customer, free in a way he'd never been. His chest tightened. He had faced million-dollar losses with less fear than this single conversation. When she saw him walk in, her smile faltered for a second, then returned, polite, distant. "Mr. Caldwell," she greeted, her tone as professional as ever. "Coffee?" He nodded, words trapped somewhere between regret and pride. As she poured, he studied her. The same calm eyes, the same grace. Yet something in her felt untouchable now, as if peace itself had chosen her. He realized then that forgiveness had made her stronger, not smaller. "I read your letter," he said finally, his voice rough, stripped of command. She froze, then looked at him, really looked. "You... what?" He nodded. "I tore it before. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." Silence stretched between them, heavy but clean. She took a slow breath, set the cup down gently and replied, "Too late, sir." No anger, no tears, just truth. The words landed softly, but cut deeper than shouting ever could. He wanted to say more, that he missed her calm, that the office was hollow, that destiny had punished him perfectly. But all he managed was, "I should have listened." She gave a small, almost tender smile. We all hear things too late sometimes. And with that, she turned to serve another customer, leaving him with the quietest rejection he'd ever received. Pride was silent. Vulnerability spoke instead. And it hurt beautifully. He stayed until closing, long after his coffee went cold. She didn't ask him to leave, but she didn't invite him to stay either. As he walked out, he heard her lock the door behind him, the soft click sounding final. The streetlights flickered on, rain falling like punctuation. He looked back once, hoping for a glance. She didn't turn. Destiny had given him a chance to apologize. It hadn't promised forgiveness. A week passed before he dared to call her again. His message was simple, almost clumsy. "Dinner? No business, I promise." He didn't expect an answer, but hours later, a short reply appeared. 1 hour. The cafe closes at 7. Ethan read it twice, unsure if it was mercy or curiosity. When she walked into the quiet restaurant that night, he stood up too quickly, awkward in a way the CEO never allowed himself to be. The waiter handed them menus, but neither looked. The air carried that soft, nervous stillness of things unspoken. "You look... well," he said, failing to hide the hesitation in his voice. She smiled faintly. "Freedom suits me." The words landed gently, but hit hard. He nodded, pretending to read the table candle instead of her face. The pride that once defined him now felt like a stranger sitting between them, unwanted and fading fast. "I owe you more than an apology," he said finally. "You owe me nothing," she replied. Her tone wasn't cold, just sure. That steadiness again, the same one that used to unsettle him in the office, now made him admire her. "You taught me more than I realized," he continued, "about silence, about control, about peace." She raised an eyebrow. "And what did peace teach you?" He hesitated. "That I never had any." For once, honesty didn't sting. It healed. The dinner stayed simple. No wine, no luxury. Just two people rebuilding words they'd once broken. He told her about sleepless nights, about the letter's return, about the echo her absence left behind. She listened quietly, fingers tracing the edge of her cup. "Destiny's strange," she murmured. "It never gives back what we want, only what we need." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe this is what I needed." She didn't answer, but her eyes softened. When they stepped outside, the air was crisp, the rain finally gone. She looked at him, then at the skyline. "You're different," she said softly. "Trying to be," he admitted. "Keep trying," she replied, her smile real this time, small but genuine. He watched her walk away, heart quieter, lighter. Destiny hadn't reunited them as lovers, not yet. It had brought them back as unfinished lessons. And he knew, lessons never stay quiet for long. Ethan found himself returning to the cafe more often, pretending it was for the coffee, though they both knew better. He'd sit by the window with his laptop, claiming to work, while his eyes occasionally drifted toward her. Alice didn't mention it, didn't tease him. She simply refilled his cup when it emptied. Their silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was familiar, the kind of quiet that builds bridges rather than walls. It felt almost dangerous, how natural it became. He started noticing things he never had before, the way she hummed when she cleaned tables, how she tucked her hair behind her ear when deep in thought, how her kindness wasn't loud but consistent. These details, once invisible to him, became everything. The arrogant CEO who once dismissed emotions as weakness now studied them like strategy. Every smile she gave a customer felt like a lesson he wished he'd learned sooner. Alice too noticed the change. He no longer barked orders or filled silence with control. Instead, he asked questions, small, sincere ones. Do you ever miss the city rush? Does peace ever get lonely? She'd smile and answer softly, sometimes, but peace listens better than people do. That line stayed with him for days. It sounded like something destiny had whispered through her just to test his heart. And for once, he was listening. As the weeks passed, the cafe became his quiet redemption ground. He still wore the same suits, but they no longer felt like armor. Sometimes when their eyes met, the air shifted, unspoken love wrapped in calm restraint. He didn't act on it. Not yet. Some feelings grow best when left to breathe, and for Ethan, patience was the newest lesson he didn't know he needed to learn. Even fate admired restraint when born from sincerity. One evening, as he was leaving, she called after him, "You forgot your coffee." He turned, smiling faintly. "Maybe I just needed a reason to come back." Her laughter, soft and genuine, lingered as he walked into the cool night air. The city lights blurred around him, but his path had never felt clearer. He didn't know where this fragile connection would lead, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid to follow it. Seattle's sky opened without warning, one of those heavy spring rains that drown umbrellas and erase footsteps. Ethan had stayed late at the cafe again, lost in her voice as she told a story about her childhood garden. When the downpour hit, she hurried to close the windows. "Wait," he said, reaching for the latch beside her. Their hands brushed. Just that. Skin, warmth, pause. The rain outside roared, but inside, the world went utterly still. "So you'll get soaked," she said, reaching for the umbrella on the counter. He shook his head. "It's fine." But she stepped closer, holding it over him anyway, as they stood under the doorway, half sheltered, half drenched. The scent of rain mixed with her perfume, simple, familiar, human. For a man who built glass towers to stay untouchable, that small act felt seismic. Something inside him cracked quietly, like pride giving up its throne. They walked in silence toward his car, sharing the small umbrella that barely covered them. Drops fell between their shoulders, but neither moved away. "You're not who you were," she said softly. He looked at her, rain glinting off his lashes. "Neither are you," she smiled, gentle, knowing. Maybe that's what forgiveness looks like. He didn't answer, but the ache in his chest said more than words ever could. Vulnerability had finally found its way in. When he offered her a ride, she hesitated, then nodded. The drive was quiet, filled with the soft hum of rain and unspoken things. At a red light, she glanced at him. "You don't hide behind control anymore." He smiled faintly. "You made it look unnecessary." For once, his honesty wasn't strategy, it was surrender. She looked away, but her reflection in the window smiled. Fate, invisible yet deliberate, marked the moment carefully. As he dropped her off, she lingered by the open door. "Thank you for the ride," she said. "Thank you for the umbrella," he replied. Her laugh was light, but her eyes lingered, studying him. "You're learning, Ethan." "Trying to," he said. The rain had stopped, yet everything still glistened. As she walked toward her door, he realized something terrifyingly simple. He didn't want the night to end. And destiny, watching, quietly agreed. He came back the next morning, still replaying the rain in his head. She was wiping tables, hair tied loosely, that calm expression back in place. "You don't rest, do you?" she asked, half smiling. "Old habits," he said, stepping closer. She looked at him steadily, the air thick with unsaid things. "You treat people like they owe you something," she said softly. He froze. No one had ever said that to him. Not, and survived his pride. Her tone wasn't cruel. It was honest, clean as glass. "You hide behind control because you're scared of losing what you never really had." He wanted to deny it, but her words found the cracks he tried to seal. "You think silence is power, but it's just fear in a suit." Ethan looked down, the mask slipping. "Maybe I am scared," he admitted quietly. It wasn't defeat. It was the first truth he'd told in years. She stepped closer, her voice lower now. "People don't follow you because you're strong, Ethan. They follow because they hope strength might save you." The sentence hit harder than any insult. It stripped him bare. He realized she saw the man behind the empire long before he did, and she never looked away. "You could have destroyed me," he whispered. "I tried," she said gently. "But you'd already done that yourself." He laughed softly, a sound part broken, part free. "So what now?" he asked. She shrugged, drying her hands. "That's up to you. But stop mistaking pride for purpose." Then she turned to serve another customer, leaving him standing there, disarmed, yet strangely lighter. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel like a CEO. He felt like a man being rebuilt. One truth, one lesson, one woman brave enough to tell him who he really was. The cafe closed early that night. The city outside hummed softly beneath a grey sky, the kind that makes confessions slip easier. Alice was stacking chairs when Ethan appeared at the door. "You shouldn't be here," she said gently. "Maybe not," he answered, "but I needed to be." She hesitated, then let him in. No titles, no tension, just two people standing among empty tables, surrounded by the quiet hum of unfinished stories. He sat down, eyes lowered. "I wasn't always like this," he began. His voice cracked in places, as if unused to softness. "My father built his empire by breaking people. I swore I wouldn't be him. But I was worse. I broke myself instead." Alice didn't interrupt. She folded her hands and listened. "Control made me feel safe," he continued. "But it cost me everything that mattered. You showed me that, by leaving." For a long moment, the only sound was the rain tapping softly against the windows. "Do you hate him?" she asked quietly. He looked up, surprised. "My father?" She nodded. "Sometimes. But mostly, I fear I've become him." His honesty filled the room, like light breaking through fog. "You haven't," she said. "You stopped the moment you cared to ask that." Her words felt like balm, not forgiveness, but the beginning of one. He smiled faintly, a man learning humility by heart. "You see right through me," he said. "Someone had to," she replied, her tone half teasing, half truth. The silence that followed wasn't awkward anymore. It was healing. He realized that the peace he envied in her wasn't luck, it was choice. And that night, for the first time in years, he chose it too. Outside, the rain stopped, as if destiny finally exhaled. The days after that night felt quieter, softer, almost dangerous. Ethan began stopping by less often, afraid that comfort could become dependency. Alice noticed, but said nothing. She'd seen this before, the pull between change and fear. She respected his silence, though part of her missed the sound of his footsteps at closing time. Destiny, patient and watchful, waited in the space between them, where pride and longing silently collided. He buried himself in work again, convincing himself it was safer, familiar, predictable, yet everything he touched reminded him of her. The scent of coffee, the sound of rain, the faint trace of forgiveness lingering like a melody. He told himself it was just distraction, not desire, but his chest argued otherwise. Every report he read felt emptier, every success less satisfying. Redemption had started, but denial was fighting back harder than ever. Alice, meanwhile, found herself watching the door each evening, half hoping he'd appear again. But she wouldn't chase a man still learning to stand without armor. You can't rebuild someone who refuses to stay, she told herself quietly. Still, she wondered if destiny truly finished what it started, or if it sometimes paused, waiting for courage to catch up. Her peace was tested, but her boundaries held. She'd earned them, and she wouldn't lose them again. Weeks passed. The city's rhythm moved on, but his didn't. Late one night, he found himself outside the cafe, the lights off, her world closed for the day. He stood there for a while, staring at the sign on the door, his reflection blending with hers in the glass. "Too late," he whispered, repeating her words from before. But somewhere, deep down, he didn't believe it. Fate rarely ended on repetition. It always had one more page to turn. The office greeted him like an old ghost, polished, cold, predictable. Ethan sat behind his desk, staring at the skyline as if it owed him answers. The city hadn't changed, but he had, and that made everything look wrong. The hum of machines, the buzz of meetings, even the scent of freshly brewed coffee. None of it filled the space she once anchored with quiet strength. His empire had never been louder, yet he'd never felt so alone. His employees noticed the difference. He spoke less, listened more. And when he did speak, the sharp edges were gone. Some said he'd softened. Others whispered he'd lost his fire. Maybe both were true. He found himself reading reports slower, eyes catching on small details. Words like hope, grace, peace. It wasn't business vocabulary, but lately those were the only currencies that made sense to him. Pride was no longer his language. At night, the building transformed into a mirror of regret. The glass walls reflected not power but absence. He used to believe silence was strength, but now it only reminded him of her, the quiet assistant who never feared him, who taught him how loud dignity could be. Sometimes he'd imagine her laughter echoing down the hallway, only to realize it was memory playing tricks. His control was intact, his heart undone. One evening, he found himself staring at the torn letter again, still taped together, still incomplete. "You'll find peace someday." The words mocked him gently, like a promise he hadn't kept. He whispered into the empty room, "Maybe peace needs direction." Outside, the lights of Seattle flickered, and he swore he saw her silhouette in one of the reflections, fleeting, impossible, but real enough to make him believe destiny wasn't finished yet, not by far. It happened on a quiet Thursday morning, the kind that slips by unnoticed. Ethan's assistant entered with a bouquet, white lilies wrapped neatly, no sender's name. "Delivery for you," she said. He frowned. Flowers weren't his language. Attached was a small card, handwritten in elegant script. His pulse stumbled as he read the words, "I finally read the letter." He froze, breath catching somewhere between disbelief and hope. Only one person could have written that. For a long time, he just stared at it, unsure if the message meant closure or invitation. The handwriting was unmistakable. Hers. Alice. The simplicity of the sentence carried the weight of everything they hadn't said. He remembered how he tore her words apart, and now she'd returned one that mended something inside him. It wasn't revenge. It was understanding. Destiny had circled back, quiet and patient, waiting for him to see the full story. He called the florist, but they wouldn't reveal who placed the order. "Paid in cash," the clerk said. That detail made him smile. It was exactly her style, humble, intentional, untraceable. He placed the note on his desk, next to her taped letter. 2 messages, years apart, yet speaking the same truth. Forgiveness doesn't need witnesses. For the first time, peace didn't feel impossible. It just felt earned. But peace always came with a choice. That evening, as the city dimmed, he wrote her a message of his own. "Coffee tomorrow?" He hesitated, then hit send, half expecting silence. Minutes later, his phone buzzed. "One condition," she replied. No apologies this time. He smiled, not the polished CEO smile, but something real. The empire outside his window looked smaller now, manageable. Maybe destiny didn't bring her back to fix what was broken. Maybe it came to show him what love rebuilt differently. The cafe was nearly empty when he arrived. Evening light spilled through the windows, soft and golden. Alice was at the counter, finishing the day's receipts. When she looked up and saw him, there was no surprise, only a quiet acknowledgement, like destiny keeping its word. "You came," she said simply. "You invited me," he replied. No grand entrance, no apologies, just presence. For two people who once spoke through silence, this felt like a full conversation. She poured him a cup without asking, just like before. The smell of roasted beans and nostalgia filled the air. "Still black?" she asked. "Still," he answered, smiling faintly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither needed to fill the quiet. Outside, rain began to fall again, gentle and rhythmic, Seattle's signature. The sound wrapped around them, soft and forgiving, as if the city itself had been waiting for this reunion as much as they had. He leaned forward. "I got your message," he said. "And?" she asked, her tone careful, curious. "It said everything," he replied. She nodded, taking a sip from her own cup. "Sometimes, peace doesn't need words," she said softly. He studied her face, the strength, the serenity, the light he'd never deserved but somehow found again. The past still lingered, but it no longer hurt. It simply reminded them how far they'd come. As he stood to leave, she said, "Ethan?" He turned. "Don't lose it again." "Lose what?" he asked. "The calm you found." Her smile was faint, but warm. He nodded, the weight of her words landing somewhere steady inside him. When he stepped outside, the rain eased, leaving the city washed clean. He looked back once and saw her watching through the glass. Same woman, new meaning. Destiny didn't need applause, it only needed timing. He returned to the cafe, no pride left, only truth. "I didn't deserve your kindness," he said. Alice looked at him, calm yet unreadable. "You don't earn kindness, Ethan. You live like you understand it." For the first time, he did. Love no longer felt like control, but quiet presence. When pride fell, silence finally spoke, and forgiveness began to sound a lot like peace. That night he wrote her a letter, simple, raw, unfinished. "You changed everything I thought I knew about love." He didn't send it. He didn't need to. The act of writing was enough. He folded it beside her old one, the torn and the new resting together, past and present breathing in harmony. Destiny had rewritten him with the same ink he once used to destroy. Weeks later, a note appeared on his desk. For the man who finally learned to listen. No signature, but he didn't need one. Her words no longer ached. They healed. They had stopped chasing romance and found something quieter. Understanding. Maybe love wasn't about reunion. Maybe it was about reflection. And sometimes peace looked a lot like goodbye that didn't hurt anymore. One morning, sunlight filled his office. 2 cups of coffee sat on his desk, black and sweet. He smiled at the second cup, not out of longing, but gratitude. When he passed by the cafe later, she waved from the window. No promises, no need for them. They had already met where destiny wanted, in the space between forgiveness and freedom, and that was enough. Sometimes destiny doesn't return what you lost. It returns who you were supposed to become after losing it. Ethan learned that the hard way, that love isn't about possession, it's about peace, and that sometimes the person you hurt the most becomes the mirror that saves you. He tore her letter apart once, thinking he was above emotion, but life, in its quiet humor, made him rewrite it word by word, with humility. Maybe we've all torn something we should have read, a letter, a moment, a chance to listen. Maybe you've met your own Alice, the person who walked away not out of anger, but out of self-respect. What would you have done in her place? Would you have stayed to fix it or walked away to heal? Tell me in the comments, because someone out there might need to hear your answer tonight. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Someone needs this reminder of grace and timing right now. And if you believe that destiny still knows how to rewrite broken stories, stay with us for more, because sometimes the next story might sound a little like yours.